Welcome to Dabo Recap. Enjoy your viewing. Suddenly, a plant bud formed on the tip of the sword. Nabi thought about the fact that her sword didn't like her. One of the adepts who suddenly appeared was looking for the master, wondering if Nabi had seen him. Nabi said that the sword absorbed her energy, which would not have happened because it could turn into a tree. He also had no particular desire to share energy with his sword. In the sky above the city, there was a bright glow resembling a silhouette. Not long ago, the human species almost ended its existence on Earth. Man faced mass starvation, disease, and worse fates. Many had already resigned themselves to this fate, and only a few did not lose hope that their torment would come to an end. And this moment that brought possible hope has arrived. The Spirit descended from heaven to earth. Faith and hope shone in the eyes of the people, just like fear of your sins. Looking at her sword, Nabi thought about fate, that it was impossible to avoid it. Despite all the sins of humanity, it deserves a second chance. But it was only a matter of time. How soon will man beg for redemption again? The heroes saw a huge dragon-like creature that engulfed the bridge. The entity that resembled an ancient dragon was not displayed at the camera. The adherents realized that this was not a materialized demon. They understood that such a demon came here so as not to harm people. But there was still some reason to make him appear in the human world. The adepts planned to find out this. Any outcome could have been expected from this dialogue. The dragon-like demon was called Imugi. The adept tried to establish contact with him. She tried to explain that due to the new laws, a demon could not just appear in the human world. The adept spoke about the created declaration about the peaceful coexistence of people and demons. Even such a controversial visit could lead to trouble. Imugi did not trust people, since people once drove his people out of these lands. The adept offered to follow her to understand this whole situation. The Imugi flew into a rage. He could not tolerate such an attitude. He knew that nothing good should be expected from humans, and that they could not be trusted. The adept was ready for such an outcome. The demon was neutralized with one blow. Sakura petals fell onto the water. A silhouette followed them. Nabi landed slowly from the air onto the water. She told the guys that this case was just the beginning, that the collision of two worlds is inevitable. But she believed that for every enmity there is reconciliation. The Imugi has lost its former power. He did not tolerate such impudence and hated people with all his soul. But our heroes did not wish him harm. They caught up with the boy and told him that he was an adept. The guy suddenly realized that the frog had found him by smell and guessed who he was. The boy was interested in why Nabi wanted to help Tokabi so much, whom he barely knew. He did not believe that she was doing this out of good intentions and tried to beat out the truth on his own. Nabi said that she only wanted to help him, but she understood that the boy did not believe her. It is possible that she herself needed help. Because of her anxiety, she accidentally injured her finger. The guy could not get this sword by any means. They exchanged glances. Nabi kept thinking that they were mistaken, that they were looking in the wrong place. The seller was very angry that they so impudently allowed them to break into his shop and take away what belonged to him. He began to cast spells. One thing was clear. He had no intention of letting them live. Because of the magic, everything began to shake, as if the seller was trying to cause an earthquake. It seemed to Nabi that he could be an adept, but in Tokebi's opinion, the seller's strength was not enough to match the incredible strength of an adept. This sight rather made them laugh, which infuriated the seller more and more. He performed the last rites of the spell and assured them to prepare for horror. The magic increased its size several times more, which scared Nabi, but not the boy, who continued to stand calmly. Superior in size, he attacked the guy with great fury, but this did not stop the boy from knocking out the seller with one blow. The blow dissipated his magical properties and he fell to the ground, twisting in pain. Continuing to writhe in pain, he clearly did not expect such an outcome of events. The boy was worried that he had gone too far with force. But the rabbit assured him that he had done everything right, since the seller kept him locked up all the time. Tokabi asked what he was doing all this time when he was hostage. The rabbit said that all this time he had been preparing a Sandan potion of immortality, which should be prepared during a special ritual. It was in one of these rituals that the seller stole the rabbit. Tokabi claimed that even the greatest alchemists on Earth for 1,000 years had not come close to the successful result of becoming immortal. Looking at the sales guy, he couldn't even dream of such an opportunity with his mental abilities, which made him angrier and angrier. The seller insisted that they didn't understand a damn thing, that he almost succeeded, that if they had not so brazenly interfered with his plans, he would have achieved the desired result. The guys looked at him and understood from his character that he did not have any plan, that he relied purely on chance. The seller stood up and grabbed the ancient sword. He was not going to give them the rabbit at all costs. Tokabi was afraid that the peach sword could harm the boy. But he mentioned that he was a half-breed, that he was half-human, and that the sword would not harm him. Nabi couldn't understand what they were talking about. The boy looked at Nabi and saw that she was scared. But Tokabi assured that in spite of everything, she would accept the truth, no matter what it was. The boy agreed with Tokabi's opinion. But still he tried to convince the seller to stop. If they do not finish everything quietly, then exorcists may come for them. The exorcists were an organization that monitored the declaration of a peace treaty between humans and demons. The boy also attributed the Quarren alliance there, followers of Lao Tzu, and the shamans who also took part in this agreement. He said that meeting them would not be the best. The seller did not want to listen and tried to attack again. The guy warned him there was no other choice. At that same second, his appearance changed beyond recognition. In front of the seller there was no longer a small boy standing, but a huge beast with large claws, eyes burning like fire and teeth sharp like a blade. The seller froze in place out of fear and could not move any of the limbs of his body. Meanwhile, the beast approached him as close as possible and opened its mouth wide. In one fell swoop, he managed to eat half the body. Suddenly, the animal disappeared and the seller was safe and unharmed. The boy was not so tough. With the help of the magic of deception, he finally managed to scare the seller. After everything that happened, he was not only unable to move but even speak. The boy remembered that Nabi saw everything that happened. He glanced at Nabi, afraid that he had scared her. She stood in shock at what she saw. Now she understood what the boy was hiding. He was a werewolf Gumiho capable of transforming into a fox with 9 tails. He needed a little time to return to human form again. Nabi saw this for the first time. She had a strong desire to touch the tail. The boy fell into an awkward position. This situation greatly embarrassed him. Nabi hugged his tail. She was amazed at how soft he was. The rabbits also found a place for themselves. She was very pleased that at least something good happened today. The boy watched everything that was happening with a smile. Tokabi was a little surprised. It was the first time he had seen tails like this on a half-breed. Tokabi asked the boy not to leave Nabi alone today after everything that happened. The heroes stood near the magic staircase that led to the moon. Tokabi and the rabbit were supposed to go there. The rabbit, as a sign of forgiveness, prepared titiak rice cakes for Nabi. Nabi was very grateful for such a gift, and the boy focused on the packaging. Tokabi and the rabbit thanked the guys for everything and went to their home on the moon. They were sure that sooner or later they would meet. Nabi noticed that it was already late outside, and it was time for them to go home too. The boy had to keep his promise to Tokibi, and he did not plan to let Nabi go alone. He emphasized that it would be better for them not to be separated, since he came up with the idea that there was a monster in the area. Nabi was jokingly worried about the guy and decided to tease him if he himself would be afraid of this monster. Among other things, Nabi needed the help of a strong adept, because of one transaction, she was erased from the memory of all her family and friends, as if she had never existed. She remembered one grandmother shaman, to whom she went even before everyone forgot about her. She said that her grandmother lived to be 100 years old, and from that moment on, she did not age for a single decade. With all this, the shaman gave Nabi her name. Nabi thought that only she could help her with her questions. She invited the boy to go with her. Without taking his eyes off, the boy listened carefully to Nabi and wanted to help her solve her problem. The guy's eyes suddenly fell into shock at what he saw. Someone suddenly stabbed Nabi's sword into his back. At the same moment she fell on the guy, and he abruptly picked her up. He saw that she began to bleed heavily. The guy's gaze immediately shifted sharply. He was very surprised by what he saw. In front stood the same seller from whom they had saved the rabbit. He was holding the same peachwood sword. He decided not to just leave everything that happened and track down the guys to take revenge. Nabi struggled to say something but couldn't through the pain. She held out the very pearl that the boy lost at their first meeting. He held this pearl together with her hand, without letting go of her. Nabi was getting worse and worse. Her strength was quickly leaving her. Nabi was getting worse and worse. Her strength was quickly leaving her. The seller at that moment stood and gloated over them, mentioning that it was in vain that they invaded his shop. As a friend, he saw something that caused him to change his tone. He saw the guy begin to take on a more terrifying form of the beast again, which caused the seller to fall into fear again. Only anger could be seen in the guy's brightly burning eyes. It was immediately clear from his gaze that he simply didn't want to scare anyone anymore. While reading a magazine at home, the old woman heard strange sounds coming from the street. This turned out to be the same shaman that Nabi spoke about. She and her dog planned to find out what was going on there. While petting her dog, she felt that it was the little fox boy who needed help. The appearance of the beast began to take on a more menacing and terrifying form. With his tail, he sharply grabbed the seller by the throat. Pulling him towards him, he realized how much he was mistaken and begged the beast for mercy. But it was already too late. He didn't care about begging. Anger completely clouded his mind. With his tail, he began to strangle him from the inside, and he began to choke. A silhouette appeared and began to observe what was happening. It turned out to be the same shaman. She came here to stop something bad from happening. From her cane, she began to draw her sword. With one light blow, she was able to stop the beast and save the seller from suffocation. The seller fell to the ground, began to cough heavily, and continued to beg for mercy and call for help. She knew the seller and knew that he often did bad things, getting off with only comments. This was the last one. She has already called those who will bring justice to the seller, and if he tries to escape, he will not think it enough. She looked at the little fox boy. Now it was necessary to deal with his question. She was interested in the question of what the little fox had forgotten on her territory. He tried to explain what the seller had done, but he himself could not come to a normal feeling. The shaman saw how the guy gradually lost control, and the beast took over him. The beast managed to finally take control of the boy's mind, and with all his might he decided to attack the old woman. But the dog managed to neutralize the violent beast in one fell swoop. The dog didn't kill the boy, he only made him pass out. If in such a state the guy managed to bite someone, he would never be able to take on human form again. Suddenly, a man in red appeared in front of Nabi and the unknown boy. He was interested in the question of what is most important for Nabi in this life. Also, Little Fox and Tokebi appeared out of nowhere. Nabi saw a memory of how she was wounded by a sword. From all this, she could not understand whether it was a dream or whether she had died. She saw in front of her a little brother who was wounded. He tried to hide her and then find their parents. When it was all over, her brother had to come back for her. The brother moved further and further away from her, promising to return for her. Nabi understood that this was their last meeting until he finally disappeared. Suddenly, Nabi woke up screaming in bed. Coming to her senses, she still could not understand whether it was a dream or reality. She decided to check the place where she was wounded by the sword. Discovering the scar, she made sure that all this was reality, and the memories with her brother were just a dream. She saw the little fox lying and tied nearby, who had again taken on his human form. He lay there without showing any signs. Nabi thought that the boy could be lying dead. She decided to check whether he was breathing or not. She raised her hand to him and heard that air was still coming from his nose. She was very glad that he was alive because she thought that he was sacrificed to resurrect her. Suddenly, Nabi was overcome with sadness and tears began to flow down her cheeks. All that remained was to find out who saved them and where they were now. The boy with the golden earring couldn't solve one problem. He ran around the house, the corridors of which constantly became an impenetrable labyrinth in which one could get lost, even if one had bad thoughts. He constantly found himself in those rooms where he had already been repeatedly, but now he managed to suddenly get into the room where Nabi was. The boy found Nabi sitting in tears. He understood that he had burst in here at the wrong moment. The boy quickly apologized and sharply slammed the door on the other side. Nabi sat in complete bewilderment at what happened, thinking that maybe her appearance made the boy feel embarrassed. This guy's older brother walked nearby, wondering why he was sitting there holding his head. The guy was embarrassed to see a crying girl in front of him, but he couldn't do anything about it. His brother was over 100 years old, and he tried to get at least one answer out of him on how to behave in such a situation with a girl. The brother continued to silently watch, waiting for him to calm down his violent temper. He himself decided to go into the room and check what was there while the younger one continued to be hysterical that he could not talk to the beautiful girl. Nabi heard perfectly well what was happening behind the door. Everything she heard made her blush. The little fox finally regained consciousness from all this noise. He had a severe headache. Nabi tried to untie the ropes with which he was bound. The younger decided not to stay and ran on about his business. His brother warned him not to leave the house. He decided to see how Nabi and the little fox were doing. He knocked on the door, asking if everything was okay. Opening the door, the guy went into the guy's room. The little fox hid Nabi behind him, because he did not fully know where he stood in front of him, and whether he could be trusted. Nabi recognized the guy. It was an old friend of hers named Mogi. But Mogi couldn't remember her, since he also forgot her like all her family and friends. Nabi reminded Little Fox about her grandmother Shaman, and Mogi was her assistant. Nabi tried to remind him that they didn't communicate very well, but they always said hello to each other. But she understood that at the moment he would not be able to remember her. He invited them to follow him to go to the mentor. The shaman sat waiting to see our heroes. She expected a lot of questions for them. In fact, the corridors of this house resembled an impenetrable labyrinth. Nabi wondered how long they were unconscious here. Mogi told them that they lay there for about 4 hours. Mogi showed them to be quiet and calm. He knocked on the door and announced that he had brought the guys to an audience. Opening the door, they saw the same grandmother shaman. For all the residents of this house, the shaman grandmother was a mentor. The guys carefully sat down on the floor opposite her. Mogi came up and began to whisper something to the mentor. The teacher asked the guys if they felt good. Nabi and Little Fox were completely fine after their rescue, for which they were very grateful. The mentor told Nabi that she was alive only thanks to the little fox, because he used a Gumiho pearl which replaced her heart and gave her a second chance at life. Nabi remembered the very pearl that she had picked up. The mentor told her that she could use the pearl for 30 years. Little Fox's look became alarming, as the teacher said that sooner or later he would want to take her away. Before his eyes there was an aura that enveloped the mentor and assistant. If he saw a calm glow above his assistant, then a frantic stream of energy rushed over his mentor. Little Fox decided not to make this all public. Nabi was replaying recent memories in her head, since she didn't really understand the essence of the conversation, and all sorts of things popped into her head. The little fox insisted that he did not intend to take the pearls for himself. Nabi looked at him and realized how much he had done for her in such a short time, even though she still didn't know his real name. The little fox thanked his mentor for her mercy and help in what he himself could not do. He said that he was trying to find the owner of this pearl, which was his own mother. The young fox tried to find out how to find her. Mogi told Little Fox that this could not be done, since the owner of the pearl had cut off contact with it. The little fox was interested in whether his mother was alive, but no one could know this, since not only death played a role in breaking the connection with the pearl. He felt sad that he could never get an answer to his question. Nabi tried to console her friend so that he would not lose hope. The mentor asked him if he was the son of her friend named Gubekwa. The little fox confirmed the words of the mentor, calling his real name Yuno. He added that his mother told him a lot about his mentor and that she could help Yuno's father. Yuno began to talk about his past, about how his father had an incurable disease. He told how his mother often left him alone to help his father survive with all her might, but returning without any results. She gave him that very pearl and asked him to take care of her father in case she did not return. She explained everything to him and told him what to do and who to look for if such a situation occurs. His mother left and Yuno never saw her again, and his father soon died. His father's relatives began to take care of Yuno, but he could not help but get used to such a life and decided that he would run away. The mentor knew this whole story very well from beginning to end. Yuno wondered if his mother came here for help. The mentor told the boy that his mother was here and asked her for help to save her husband. Yuno was interested in the answer. He was eager to find out what happened to his mother. The shaman did not help her then, since she could only take the life of a dying person in order to end his suffering, but not how not to bestow it. Returning to the memories, Yuno's mother asked the old woman to return her 8 tails to her, since she was a gumiho, and all her power was contained in the 9 tails. The mentor was not going to do this under any circumstances. The mother, in hysterics, begged her to return her tails, because that was the only way she could save her husband. The mentor's patience was running out, and she warned her mother not to cross the line. She saw her as a monster who destroyed 999 human lives for her own benefit. The mentor decided to remind her of the agreement they once concluded, that she will take her tails in exchange for her life and will never ask for them back again. The mentor did not give in to pity in front of her dying husband and little son, because she realized that in order for the gumiho to be able to save her husband and become a human herself, she would have to take another human life, something that the mentor tried to prevent. Kumho, succumbing to anger, began to lose control. Taking the form of a beast, she decided to take what was hers by force. Since she did not have all her strength, this made it possible to quickly neutralize the enraged beast without straining. Realizing that she did not have enough strength, she simply continued to ask further. Bowing down, she begged that only her mentor could help her. But the mentor did not change her decisions. The gumiho's heart was breaking with sadness. She understood that there would be no other way out. Her emotions burst out. She realized how much time had been wasted. The mentor was the only salvation for the gumiho, and in the past the only friend, but all this was lost. She considered her a worse monster than herself. Then she doesn't leave her hope. The mentor told Yuno that that was the last time she saw his mother. She thought that after everything she heard, Yuno would hate her for this. But he didn't know what to answer, and simply thanked her for telling her where she saw his mother for the last time. Yuno decided to move closer to his mentor. He told her that he lost everything he had after his mother left. Yuno bowed to his mentor and asked her to take him as a student. She saw a rather familiar picture, just like his mother worshipped her in the same way. And in this same case, she refused him, so that he doesn't even beg or press for pity. The teacher refused to take Yuno as her student. She saw that he, just like his mother, almost committed murder for the sake of a girl whom he had not known for more than a day. Nabi began to blame herself for this, but the mentor told her not to make excuses for Yuno. The mentor assured that no matter how he made excuses, it was in his nature to cause pain to others. She called him an evil demon, the son of the same evil 1,000-year-old demoness Gubakwa, so that he does not deceive himself, hiding his real essence, which thirsts for blood. Yuno was very hurt by the words that the mentor spoke. He began to shake a little from everything he heard, but still he tried to ask for forgiveness, so that he could be taken as a student, set on the right path, promising that this would not happen again, and that he would atone for the sins of his mother. In such a situation, the mentor suggested that he go to the abode of demons, which was located on the island of Gangwado. This is the place where all the evil forces lived. This situation did not really inspire Yuno. He told his mentor that when his mother drank, she always asked Yuno for forgiveness for not giving birth to him as a normal person. That his mother told him that she had a friend who would teach Yuno to be human, just like she taught his mother. She told Yuno about her greatness, that she was one of the great adepts, whom even the divine beings living in the sky were afraid of. and that she was the only friend his mother had that she could truly trust. Some of the regret began to appear in the mentor's eyes. Even from Mogi's expression, one could see that this story affected him. The mentor, with her hand on her head, could not even imagine that Yuno would not be inferior to her mother in perseverance. She nevertheless agreed to take him on as a student, warning him that if even one bad deed happened, she would take away his 9 tails once and for all. Yuno thanked his mentor for giving him a chance and promised him that won't let her down. When they resolved the issue with Yuno, it remained to solve the problem of Nabi. The mentor asked why she was looking for her. Nabi introduced herself to her mentor, giving her last name Dan, adding that her father gave her the name on the advice of her mentor. But the mentor did not remember giving someone such a name, although the surname was quite familiar to her. She knew a family who lived nearby in the area with the same last name. Nabi confirmed that her family did indeed live in the area. Her father's name was Dan Byung, and her mother was Lee Mi Jin. The mentor knew that this couple had only a son. Nabi insisted that this was her brother. Returning to the past, 8 years ago, one of the 12 highest celestial beings appeared in the human world. It was the evil dragon Kanchori. The great priest Kulwolde tried to expel him, but did not have time. And he suffered a great drought, which caused a fire. The fire caused great damage to people. Nabi's parents were firefighters, saving people. They themselves died in that place. The same fate befell Nabi's brother. The news reported this incident, calling Nabi's parents a heroic couple who saved people at the cost of their lives. Nabi said that by a lucky chance she was able to survive then, and from that moment she began to live with her aunt. But they didn't remember Nabi because one incident happened to her. Having had an accident along with her classmates, an unknown guy in red came to her. He offered her a deal that they would all live, but everyone would forget about Nabi's existence. Nabi made the deal because she couldn't allow her friends to die, and from that moment on, everyone forgot about her. Nabi told this story to her mentor and Moga. The mentor realized that the guy in red was talking about the adept Chokmyung. Chokmyung was the supreme celestial being, who was previously called Enlightened Chok. Of all the enlightened ones, Chok used the most vile methods. In the guise of a young guy with a fan, he made deals with people. Nabi confirmed the words of her mentor. They are both talking about the same thing. Now Nabi began to beg for help, saying that she would do whatever she was asked. She was even ready to pay, but at the moment she had no money, and she would definitely come up with something. The teacher began to think that she has to face another restless passenger who just won't leave her alone. The mentor told her that her words could be a lie since no one could confirm Nabi's identity. Nabi was scared. She was shaking all over and assured them that she was not lying. Mogi argued that the matter might not have been about Nabi, since Chokmyung knew how to control people's memories and the story that Nabi told was invented by him. That the accident that Nabi and her classmates got into might not even have happened, since Chokmyung could simply replace Nabi's memories. Mogi said that Dan Nabi might not have existed at all, that she was a completely different person with someone else's thoughts. Moga's words shocked Nabi. She didn't want to believe it. She started to get hysterical. Yuno made a remark to Mogi that he was greatly scaring Nabi with his guesses. The mentor also reprimanded Mogi because he began to go too far. Mogi himself realized this and asked Nabi for forgiveness. The teacher thought if Nabi really was the daughter of Dan Bayon and Lee Mi Jin, then she couldn't just leave it like that. She said that she would take care of her and that Nabi could stay in her house for a while. The mentor suggested that the children have a good rest after all the events that happened to them. Mogi was tasked with providing the boys with sleeping places and escorting them. He showed where their rooms would be. The room on the right was for Nabi, and the one on the left was for Yuno. Yuno was grateful for the help. I still couldn't understand how it had all come to this. The guys didn't understand what he was getting at, and Mogi decided to speak directly. He warned them not to be surprised that he didn't like them. Mogi told them a little about his mentor, that all her life he tried to lead correctly, and with her rightness blocked the lives of the bad guys who harbored a grudge against her, and at some point tried to encroach on her life. As the protector of the House of Mentors, Mogi treated with caution the boy whose mother was a 1,000-year-old demon, and the girl whose life was connected with one of the most insidious creatures of this world. He hoped that his guys understood his position perfectly. Forewarned means forearmed. Yuno assured Mogi that he had no need to worry, that they would prove to everyone that they could be trusted. Mogi grinned, pretending to believe it, adding that the rooms were completely at their disposal, that he left dinner for them on the table in the living room. Mogi went about his business. Yuno followed him with his gaze, and Nabi continued to sob endlessly. He offered Nabi food, she agreed, all without stopping shedding tears. Nabi could not calm down that good Mogi, whom she knew, no more. Yuno dragged her into the room and began to calm her down a little. He understood how hard it was for her, but she endured everything. He promised her that soon they would figure everything out, and everyone would remember her again. Yuno turned his gaze to Nabi's backpack, and remembered that she still had the pies that the rabbit had prepared for her. Even at the moment of a delicious meal, Nabi could not stop crying and crying. Due to his abilities, Yuno could not enjoy the taste of the pies, not to mention the satiety. Remembering the hunger, a picture came into his head of Nabi sharing his blood with him. Such thoughts made Yuno feel bad at heart. He was grateful to Nabi for helping him in difficult times. Just like Nabi, she remembered the words of the mentor, that he helped her come back to life even without really knowing her. Yuno asked her to calm down, so they need to gain strength to solve their difficult problems. Nabi began to listen to him, and the tears on her face became less and less. As the first goal of training, Yuno wanted to solve Nabi's problem, if she wouldn't mind. Nabi was afraid that Moga's words might be true, that they might be wasting their time. Yuno believed that everything would work out for them, and that he did not know the other Dun Nabi, except for the one he managed to meet today. Nabi's eyes filled with hope and the tears left her completely. Yuno's warm words brought a smile back to her face. The teacher was sitting near the window. After they met Yuno, she and Mogi reminisced about old times. Mogi reminded the teacher how Yuno's mother followed them everywhere, constantly chasing them in hopes of getting the rest of her tails back. Kumiho constantly set ridiculous traps for them, which she herself often fell for. But after some time and 100 ridiculous traps passed, the young mentor still became attached to her. Mogi recalled that when Gubakwa quietly joined them, the smile on the mentor's face could be seen more and more often. Sometimes he recalled that some moments were difficult but very funny. Mogi kept dreaming of going on a new journey. The mentor continued to look out the window, thinking more about the future. Mogi suggested to her that he could search for Gubekwa if the mentor so desired. He also assured his mentor that there are pressing problems that are more important than chasing the ghosts of the past. She did not share this opinion with him, realizing that everyone was in a difficult situation now. After a long thought, she realized that the Gumiho did not deserve such an attitude towards her. Mogi looked at his mentor, understanding how hard it was becoming for her, agreeing with her opinion. Meanwhile, Nabi was sweeping on the porch of the house. Raising her head up, she was able to see a very bright picture. The sky was clear enough that she could see the silhouette of a deity. She decided to pray to God and thank him for looking after them. A couple passing by saw Nabi praying faithfully and also decided to join in the prayer. 30 years have passed since the deity appeared to humanity in its most difficult years. Although this gave birth to faith and hope in people again, but he did not provide people with food. He did not cure them of their diseases, but simply, like many millennia, simply observed from the sidelines. But even just by observing it, it made people behave more prudently, which quite calmed Nabi down. She asked God that he would continue to look after them and not leave them. Suddenly, Nabi was lucky enough to notice something else in the sky. She saw how a trail quickly formed in the sky, like from an airplane in the form of pink hearts. She knew that it was her idol, one of the 12 highest celestials, Jin Chong, rushing by. She kept wondering if he could see her. Mogi, who suddenly appeared behind her, asked that Jin Chong was in the sky. Nabi screamed in fear. He apologized to her for unexpectedly frightening her, but she insisted that she was not the least bit scared. She told him how incredibly handsome Jin Chong was, how everyone in her class was his fan. Mogi noticed that Nabi chooses interesting idols for himself. Shy, Nabi also tried to tell Mogi that he was tall and handsome, but she didn't succeed very well. Mogi didn't care much, but still thanked her for the compliment. Mogi said that she did not have to do the cleaning, but Nabi did not want to sit idle and asked her to do chores around the house. He didn't want Nabi to change anything in the furnishings of the house, and that she better not interfere with such things. Nabi sadly apologized to him and said that she would not do this anymore. Nabi felt humiliated by his words. Mogi took the broom from her and went to the house grounds. Mogi decided to go see how Yuno was doing. Entering the courtyard, he saw the teacher teaching Yuno. Before the training began, the mentor wanted to give Yuno one task to test his abilities. The mentor's task was for him to catch a flea. To do this, Yuno had to use his demonic powers. The flea jumped sharply, slightly startling Yuno. Yuno used his form and rushed to catch up with the flea. The teacher saw that Yuno's abilities were quite strong, despite his age. But his movements were not so successful, since he did not have much control over his abilities. Jumping, Yuno thought he had caught a flea, but it turned out to be faster. Jumping a second time, he also didn't succeed. The mentor tried to give him an example that there are no predators who fall into their own traps. She tried to convey to Yuno that he was now more in the role of prey, and so he still managed to catch a flea. He happily ran to his mentor to show off his completed task, but she said that she was not satisfied with this result. In order for Yuno to catch the flea, he had to use enough strength to kill it. Yuno didn't really understand what his mentor was trying to convey to him. Mogi suggested to his mentor that it was better to set an example for him now. The mentor thought that a kitchen knife was not a very suitable example, but Mogi assured that there was no better option now. He asked Yuno to keep a close eye on what was happening. The teacher swung her knife at lightning speed. Moga's finger remained safe and sound, but the flea did not. They clearly showed him an example of how to do it. The mentor told him to call her when he achieved a better result. As Mogi left, he warned him not to destroy the house. Yuno realized his mistakes and took note of everything. He needed to use his claws to get a good result. Nabi looked into the yard, seeing Yuno trying to train. Realizing that she was not the only one scolded today, Yuno looked a little embarrassed as he looked at Nabi. He ran up to her to find out how her day started. The weather was beautiful outside. Nabi and Yuno were sitting on the porch of the house. A butterfly flew next to them, which they both watched. Nabi told Yuno how she tried to do housework, but she was forbidden to touch the furnishings of the house. Yuno looked at Nabi and saw that this situation upset her. Nabi complained that being here for a whole week, she could not occupy herself with any chores, even household chores. He tried to cheer her up so that she would not worry about this, that she was already doing everything possible that was required of her. Yuno saw Nabi turn her gaze somewhere. Hearing girlish laughter, they saw 3 girls their age heading to school. The 2 of them looked at this in surprise. Nabi was reminded of the past. She asked Yuno how he was doing with school. He told her that he had not visited it since he ran away from home. Since he was half demon, this information could get him kicked out, so he always avoided teachers and classmates. Yuno always understood that he could not find a place for himself among his peers. He thought that his mentor would be able to find a suitable place for him, where people like him were. But knowing his true essence, no one wanted to see him there. Yuno had already come to terms with the fact that everyone in this world would reject him. Nabi took his hand. Yuno didn't even expect such a reaction. Holding his hand, she began to smile at him. Yuno stopped being sad and began to smile back at her too. He trusted Nabi because she was the first one to accept him for real. But Nabi did not feel lonely with him. The teacher instructed to send Yuno to school. Mogi had plans to send him to a special private school where he could find a suitable master for Yuno. Mogi wanted to find a special habitat for him, where he was with people like himself. This is exactly what the mentor wanted. She understood that Yuno would not be able to learn much here. Mogi told his mentor that with her great experience and great wisdom, she could be a good teacher. But in 1,000 years, she never had any students. Yuno became the first, and she was afraid to let him down. But Mogi kept insisting that she should somehow try to teach students. Mogi called Yuno to discuss his training. He told him that starting next year, he would go to Walyan High School, where the best students would study him and help him learn his powers. Mogi suggested that Yuno apply for the entrance exam today. Yuno knew about several guys who studied at this school. Mogi said that this is a very promising private school with a hostel system. Mogi's mention of the dorm made Yuno a little confused. Mogi added that the school had very comfortable conditions, despite the fact that there was a curfew. He had already managed to make inquiries about Yuno's previous school. He was slightly surprised when he saw Yuno's good academic performance before he ran away. Mogi looked at Yuno seriously and addressed him. Yuno looked at him anxiously and didn't understand what else he wanted. Serious. He explained to Yuno that all his actions, assessments, behavior, and speech would affect his mentor's reputation, reminding him that he promised to be obedient so that he would not let his mentor down in any way. Yuno wondered if it was possible for Nabi to enroll in this school so that he would not leave her alone in this house. Mogi saw how attached they were to each other, but still he told him that this could not be done. Yuno was very upset by the answer. As Mogi explained to him that Nabi had no information about herself, no birth certificate, no information about what school she had studied at before. Mogi wanted to convey one more piece of information from his mentor. But at that very second, Yuno seemed to disappear. Yuno quickly ran down the corridor. He needed to find Nabi. He saw her sitting on the balcony. She was sitting there with the same butterfly they had watched in the morning. Yuno had to tell her everything about school. He began to remember all the moments with her, about how they first met, about going to the seller who stole Tokebi's friend, about that very pearl of his mother, how Nabi returned that very pearl to him, and how she died in his arms. His most important memory was where Nabi was smiling. Yuno approached Nabi with concern. He said that he was being sent to another school where he would live, and would not be able to see Nabi. Yuno blamed himself a lot for getting into all this, regretting that he listened to his mother's advice to find someone who will solve his problem by trusting a person he doesn't know. Yuno decided to run away again, extending his hand to Nabi. He hoped that she would take it, and they would run away together. Nabi smiled at him again, supporting his idea. Holding his hand, he promised Nabi, no matter what, to return her to her old life. They went to the city. Yuno noticed that his father left him some money, which should have been enough for them at first. Yuno asked if Nabi regretted that she ran away with him. With a smile on her face, she didn't regret her decision one bit. Continuing her journey, Nabi began to replay in her head how everything had led her to this moment. According to the news that Nabi watched, it was said that the exorcists managed to destroy all the evil demons. Nabis were taught that all crimes in this world were committed by demons, without even suspecting that life would soon connect her with this. She did not believe everything that society instilled in her. Even after she found out who Yuno really was, she didn't see him as a monster, only a man who was lonely in this world, always standing on the brink of the abyss, and trying to overcome despair. Looking at Yuno, Nabi believed that life doesn't make them monsters, but society makes them do bad things. Nabi couldn't even imagine how afraid Yuno was of people, when suddenly something tore Yuno away from Nabi. Nabi was afraid that someone had attacked them. The unknown woman attacked Yuno with great strength and speed and knocked him to the ground. Nabi, watching what was happening, saw a second unknown person appear, as if this was not the first time they had hunted Yuno. Knowing that he was a demon, they were slightly surprised to see it, that he was able to regain his human appearance. The two who attacked them were none other than exorcists. There was an organization called Song Inshin, which worked together with the government to control magic in the human world. This organization also sent exorcists on hunts, giving them a license. The same exorcist girl who attacked Yuno showed that she had that same license. She tried to get Yuno permission to be in a public place or someone who would vouch for his unauthorized outing. Yuno couldn't do anything because he was pinned to the ground by the girl. The second exorcist filmed everything that happened on his phone. Yuno kept trying to get up to explain what the exorcist wanted to hear, but the girl did not allow him to do this, as if she was simply mocking him. They continued to present him with instructions that if he did not cooperate with them, he would be deported or eliminated. The girl repeated all this on camera several times to get a good shot. The second exorcist continued to film everything and, as if for the sake of mockery, constantly said that he did not record it and should be filmed again. Nabi could not tolerate this chaos, and she decided to stand up for Yuno by running up and pushing the operator hard. Nabi covered Yuno with herself and warned the exorcists to stop mocking him. The exorcist girl presented Nabi so that she, as a civilian, would not interfere with the completion of their task. But seeing how Nabi stood firmly in Yuno's defense, the exorcist did not stand on ceremony with her and rudely replied to Nabi that she would just fuck off. Nabi did not fall for the provocation, because she knew that they had done nothing wrong, and that now there was simply chaos going on here. She couldn't imagine that exorcists could do such bad things. The second exorcist rose from the ground, shaking off the dirt from his clothes, and the girl simply silently continued not to react to Nabi's words. The girl asked her partner if she needed to say anything else to this citizen. His partner assured that this would be of little use, and he would not expect anything other than obstinacy, so it was better to simply continue his task without reacting. The girl again began to ask Yuno whether he had someone, for example, an adept who would vouch for him. Yuno couldn't think of anything. The teacher just came to his mind. But he didn't want to tell her so as not to set her up even more. The exorcist girl saw that Yuno had no one to turn to, and that if he did not resist, they would escort him to Confuado, the place of exile for all evil beings, or simply eliminate him. Nabi tried to prove to them that Yuno was half demon and not bad. The exorcists didn't really understand how it was half, and they threw out options that he was a hybrid or possessed. Despite everything, they saw him as a threat to society. They had to isolate Yuno at all costs. Yuno suggested to them that he would agree to their terms if they did not touch Nabi. Nabi did not agree with this version of events, and until recently did not want to give Yuno to them. She begged him not to leave her alone and said that in any case she would go with him. This whole scene began to piss the exorcist off a little. Such moments infuriated the girl very much. The girl suggested that her partner quickly sort everything out, since she felt that they were really no longer some kind of exorcists, fighters against evil, but a gang of hooligans that frightened youngsters. Her partner remarked to her that she had begun to give free rein to her emotions, since this was not allowed in their work. He suggested that she still offer help for them, or let them go altogether. The girl explained that this was all a joke, and that she would never follow the lead of the sly fox and the snotty girl who could lead them on their nose. They decided not to delay and resolve all the issues, as they called it, in the old, fast-acting way. The exorcist guy grabbed his sword and began to draw it. He took his partner's hand and began to stretch it towards his sword. Our guys didn't understand what was happening. The exorcist cut his partner's hand with his sword. The girl with a cut hand began to approach the guys, which they didn't really like, and Nabi kept asking her not to come closer to them. Yuno had to push Nabi away from him to avoid putting her in danger. The girl grabbed Yuno by the face with that same hand. She knew that if he felt blood, his true essence would be released. She provoked him to lose control of himself, emphasizing that he was going crazy from the blood and could not live without it. Yuno held strong, not giving in to her provocations. But unfortunately, he did not yet possess such strength to completely control the beast that lived inside him. The beast managed to gain the upper hand. It burst out with great force, throwing the exorcists and Nabi back several meters. They barely managed to land on the ground. Having landed, the girl managed to catch Nabi in her arms. The exorcists achieved what they wanted, and Nabi again had to see his true essence. The beast began to slowly approach the guys. Yuno completely lost touch with reality due to the loss of control. He could not even remember about Nabi. Nabila was very frightened by what she saw. She was worried that he would not cause trouble to himself and her. The exorcist tried to convey the truth to Nabi that it was not the best idea to build any kind of relationship with such a beast, since it could end very badly.
In the best case, she will be arrested by the same exorcists for assisting the demon, and in the worst case, the beast will simply devour her sooner or later.
Twirling his sword in his hands, the guy approached Nabi. He sat down opposite her, looking into her eyes. He said goodbye to her, hitting her hard with the sword hilt right in the forehead. From such a strong blow, Nabi immediately passed out. After some time, she came to her senses. She was lying on the road, people were passing by, periodically looking at her. When she got up, she couldn't quite understand what had happened. Then she realized that Yuno had been taken away by the exorcists after all. She was very afraid that something worse would happen, that he would be safe and sound. Holding her head, she couldn't figure out what to do. She had no choice but to ask her mentor and Mogi for help. Nabi suddenly rose from the ground and began to run as fast as she could. As she ran, she began to blame herself very much. She blamed herself for being weak and unable to prevent anything, and that in such situations she had no choice but to ask someone for help. Yuno recalled a story from 5 years ago when he was sitting on the couch, eating ice cream and playing on his phone. His father sat next to him. His mother approached Yuno and said that she could teach him how to control his dark energy. Little Yuno, looking at his mother, agreed, since he did not really like being a yokai, and he always tried to hide it from others so that it would not interfere with his life. Yuno was then angry with his mother and dared to say a lot of bad words in front of her. She was not angry with her son for his behavior at that time, because she knew how difficult it was for him at that time. Left alone with his father, he told little Yuno not to worry, that Yuno will be able to not use his power until the end of his days and live a normal life. But when Yuno lost both of his parents, he knew he had no other options. He tried all the options to find someone who would help him stay on track. Returning to recent events, Yuno still managed to regain control. He saw those same exorcists, but did not see Nabi nearby, since she did not know that the exorcists sent her behind a magical barrier and she could not see them. Yuno tried his best to keep his mind under control and find Nabi as quickly as possible. All he remembered was that she was very scared to see him as a monster again. And now Yuno thought that Nabi needed his help more than ever. His eyes filled with rage. He regained complete control of his body and mind. Yuno was eager to quickly deal with his offenders. The exorcist girl continued to tease Yuno with blood, but this could no longer bribe him. The partner suggested that the girl heal her wound. All he needed was one magical look to completely heal his partner's bleeding wound. Exorcists always work in pairs to protect each other in critical moments. Yuno kept trying to figure out what was the best thing to do to resolve this situation. He quickly began to raise his index finger forward, pointing it directly at the exorcists. This only meant that he was going to challenge one of them to a duel. This gesture made the girl a little surprised. Her eyes sparkled with emotion. She was extremely happy that Yuno offered them a one-on-one duel, since he was very eager to fight him. Very joyfully, she ran to accept his challenge. Before the fight, they had to introduce themselves to each other and express their terms of victory. The exorcist girl introduced herself first, saying her name Honggu Hua. She was a third-grade student at Wolyan School. Her teacher was the monk Cheol Wol, and that she didn't like to kill much because she believed in karma, warning Yuno to scream when he is not ready to fight anymore. Yuno couldn't tell much about himself, only putting forward the conditions that if he won, they would leave him and Nabi alone. Gukhua happily waited for the start of the fight, but her mood changed sharply, since Yuno could not tell anything about himself, and this completely took away her cheerful mood for the duel. Soon she began to swear heavily. Her partner reprimanded her to control her emotions before the fight, to which he received the answer to shut up. He understood that his partner was as irredeemable as possible. The exorcist took a coin from his pocket. He warned his partner and Yuno will prepare for the fight. The coin flew high up. The coin immediately hit the sign of a coffee shop that was located nearby. After this, the guys immediately began the fight. Yuno immediately managed to quickly dodge Gokwa's blow. Instead of his face, she hit the stone tile with her fist, thus destroying most of the stone path. Yuno was amazed by such a powerful blow that he compared it to a huge heavy steel ball falling at high speed. He understood that she was wasting too much of her strength with such blows. This allowed Yuno to remember the lesson with the flea. He tried to fight not with strength but with his mind. Every time she tried to strike, Yuno imagined himself as the same flea that he could not catch for a long time. He tried to wait for the moment when she would start to get tired, and then it would be easier to deal with her. The partner took out his phone again to start filming and then posted on his page on the internet. But because of the speed of their fight, he couldn't focus the phone's camera properly. Gukhua still couldn't land a single blow on Yuno, as if he had truly become an elusive flea. Her partner was perplexed by what was happening. Having caught the right moment, Yuno was able to strike her with an accurate blow. The blow was so strong that everything around was blown up into the air. Gukhua was extremely furious. She did not want to lose to Yuno in a duel with all her might. Yuno continued to watch her every move. He had to make sure not to make the slightest mistake. The exorcist saw that Yuno was excellent at using illusions and summoning doubles, and this was not just a hallucination of his partner. He saw that Gukhua was holding up well, but there was no point in relying on her innate abilities, since for Yuno it was just a game, but for her it was a good lesson. The partner understood that in this situation they would have to play by Yuno's rules. Yuno saw that Gukhua was beginning to lose strength and suggested that she still give up on her own. He decided to joke that if she did not accept his conditions now, he would add that after winning she would wash his shoes for the rest of her life, adding that even for this she hardly has the strength. At the joke, Gukhua's partner began to laugh loudly. He even dropped his phone due to his strong laughter. Crouching on his knees, clapping his hands, he continued to laugh loudly. And soon he fell to the ground. Gukhua could not tolerate such treatment. Her anger was so strong that she decided to take extreme measures. She scratched her arm and tried to cast a spell. She called on a huge creature to help her. Her partner continued to laugh at the joke, could not believe that Gukhua had summoned the spirit of Nachal to her aid. Gukhua told him to shut up and stop laughing. She ordered Nachal to attack the Yukai with all his might, and he attacked him. At that same second, Yuno managed to turn into a huge fox and grab the spirit of Nahal into his mouth, and he could not do anything else. Yuno returned to his former appearance, and Nachal, after he was quickly defeated, simply sat and cried from fear. Gukhua flew into a rage and began to strongly scold the spirit for not being able to defeat the inexperienced fox cub. The partner could not believe everything that was happening. Nachal did not like such a rude attitude from Gukhua and began to growl angrily at her. He immediately decided to attack her. Gukhua did not approve of this behavior and decided to teach the disobedient animal a lesson. She tried to teach him a lesson that he was attacking the wrong one because his opponent was a fox. Nachal saw that his mistress was very angry, and he could not contradict her. But the fox was too strong for him and he could not compete with him either. From all this confusion, he sharply turned his gaze to Gukhua's partner standing next to him. He couldn't quite understand what the beast wanted from him, and suddenly he realized that he was going to attack him. Gukhua also couldn't understand what was happening to the spirit. Nachal suddenly attacked him, and he was ready to take the blow. The partner, taking out his sword, threw its sheath to the ground. He dealt many blows to the spirit, but this still did not stop Nachal. With one clear blow, he managed to take off the spirit's head. But my partner was very surprised when he saw that Nachkal's severed head continued to attack him. Even with its head severed, the spirit managed to bite off half of the exorcist's body. Returning briefly back in time, that same exorcist was sitting at home reading his books. He was distracted from reading when he heard his name being called Choi Cheonbang. Cheonban was approached by his colleague Kigo to punish his partner for going into his library without permission. He looked at this book and saw that she was studying the call of that very spirit of Nachal. Kigo emphasized that the call of this spirit could bring great troubles. Cheonban asked what high risks this could bring. Kigo told him that if the spirit fails to defeat its opponent, it will switch and want to kill the one who summoned it. He also added that if he cannot kill the one who summoned him, he will constantly switch to other victims until he kills someone and takes him with him to the underworld. Summoning such a monster is very risky for an inexperienced student. If things don't turn out according to plan, civilians could be harmed. Kigo tried to convey all this to the naughty Gukhua, but she, as always, tried to play in her own way. Cheonbang saw all of this as just Gukhua's little prank that wasn't worth wasting his time on. Then he did not yet know how all this could turn out for them. Cheonban was flying in the air without half of his body. A teddy bear fell out of him onto the ground, which exactly described his situation. But this did not cause him much of a problem since he was an experienced fighter and, with the help of magic, could grow a limb for himself. The spirit was also able to return its head back to its body. Nachal saw that he couldn't cope with Cheonban either. Gukhua flew into him with a strong blow to buy them some time. The spirit flew into the concrete wall with enormous force, breaking through it. Gukhua was worried about her partner and asked about that teddy bear without an arm. Because thanks to such toys, Cheonban could regrow his lost body parts, but only until the toy itself ran out of them. They remembered the lesson Kigo told them. In order to get rid of Nachal, they need to call on another one like him, so that they start fighting among themselves. Cheonban asked Gukhua if she could summon another spirit of the same kind, but she spent all her strength and could not make another summon. He looked at Gukhua with a smile and proposed his idea to her. He will distract the spirit, and she must finish the fight in order to return everything to its place. Nachal came to his senses and was preparing to attack again. Gukhua remembered that she was still having a fight with Yuno. This whole situation made her forget a little. Yuno stood aside and watched everything that was happening. Cheonban continued his battle with the spirit. All the blows he struck did not harm the angry Nachal one bit. Yuno said that he wanted to give up the fight, and was ready to help them get rid of the enraged spirit. In the background, a spirit managed to rip Cheonban's head off with his tongue. Another toy also lost a limb. That allowed him to return his head to its place. Cheonban was very angry because he understood that he would not be able to grow his head a second time. Gukhua started laughing loudly. The proposal to join forces with Yuno made her laugh very much. She noticed that this was a good attempt on his part to suck up to them. Gukhua took off her glasses. She put them in her jacket pocket, after which she began to take it off and tell Yuno that he would help them with the spirit when it did devour him. Yuno watched as she began to change her appearance. Gukhua has changed beyond recognition. 6 arms and 2 additional heads appeared on her body. She also grew significantly in size, and Yuno saw that she managed to take on the appearance of the demigod Asura. Gukhua warned him that it would be better if he just gave up in the first place. Yuno was overcome with fear, and he understood that things had gone beyond the realm of possibility. He tried to recreate his illusion so that she could not catch him, but he never succeeded. She was much stronger than him and faster. She pulled him close to see the fear in his eyes personally, but Yuno tried not to give in to it. Gukhua ordered Nachal to calm down, as now he will get what he wants. She stroked Nachkal's chin and he became completely under her control. She opened the spirit's mouth to feed it to Yuno. Yuno already understood that this was the end, and now Nachkal would devour him. At that same second, something hit the spirit with great force right in the face. It was Mogi who arrived in time to help in the guise of a giant wolf. Gukhua did not expect this turn of events at all. Mogi took on his human form and released Yuno to the ground. He understood that the guy would have very big problems. Mogi turned his gaze to Gukhua and told her to regain her appearance, since every time she called upon Asura, she gave her 10 years of her life. She understood that she had lost. She decided to pick up her partner Cheon Bang and start crying, telling how desperate she was when she lost her brother, who died. Mogi watched everything that happened with a calm gaze. He tore one of his hairs from his head, blowing on it to make it fly into the air. With this, Mogi managed to summon his double, who could carry out all his movements and instructions. Mogi immediately punched right through his double in one motion, and throwing him straight into the mouth of Nachkal so that he could return to his dimension. He once again warned Gukhua to let Asura go. Gukhua regained her appearance and immediately lost consciousness because she had spent too much energy. He told Yuno that the double he summoned and soon fed to Nachal, Mogi had been creating for 50 years, warning Yuno that this was a good reason for him to come to such actions. To be continued. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Dabo Recap with Love.